Got that.
Well, happy Halloween, chat. We're finally here at part two of Finding the Finders. Oh, it's been an arduous few days waiting for the remainder of the FBI file to be read. 180 fucking pages. 180 rue out of the 340 pages. We've got 120 to go. More than 120 to go. My math is terrible. I am a dumb motherfucker. We've got a lot of pages to go. I hope you're excited. I also have a guest coming on. Somebody who's researching the finders for a book they're writing. It's going to fill us in on the details on what's going on with the degenerate fucks known as the Finders, a sex cult that preys on children. That was originally started as a CIA counterintelligence operation. Bravo, CIA. Way to knock it out of the ballpark. Well, we got a few things to talk about before we get into having the guest on, before we get into the remainder of the FBI files. This is going to be a relaxed stream. Who doesn't love relaxing to the screams of children? That's what I call a brilliant Halloween. I'm just going to take it slow. Take it nice and slow. All right? Enjoy ourselves. It's a spooky evening. A lot of scary things happening. Nothing scarier, really, when you think about it, than a story that involves glow-in-the-dark monsters abducting children. I think it fits the theme quite well. A little bit of news popping up before we get into the proper discussion of the finders themselves, but it is related. How could it not be related? I'm talking about our boy, Mr. I have an egg-shaped penis, Jeffrey Epstein. You may remember this champion. The only man in the world to commit suicide via somersault from a bunk bed, using a roll of toilet paper as the noose. Pretty amazing, I'll be honest. I mean, we all know it was a tragic suicide, chat. Can we get a R for Rip and Pepperoni, Jeffrey Epstein, for your top bunk suicide in jail with malfunctioning cameras and guards that weren't really guards but who were also asleep at the time? Awfully convenient. Well, apparently it's not just everybody on Earth that thinks that this is awfully convenient. Other people apparently have been having some issues with the Jeffrey Epstein suicide story, including a coroner. Jeffrey Epstein's autopsy more consistent with homicidal strangulation than suicide, Dr. Michael Bodden reveals. A what? You mean he didn't commit suicide? Somebody get me the list. We need to update those fucking numbers. Stat. Apparently, medical examiners and coroners, when reviewing the evidence, thought, hey, this smells like bullshit. I don't think this guy committed suicide. Now, they couldn't speculate as to why he would have been homicidally strangled. I can, though. Here's my quirky little theory about what's going on with Jeffrey Epstein. Though I've laid it out before, I'll lay it out again because it fits in with the motif of the finders. Jeffrey was murdered because he provided elite, powerful, rich men with children to fuck. And there's nothing elite, powerful, rich men hate more than being chastised for fucking toddlers. Presidents, prime ministers, and princes all use this guy as their pimp. There's quite a bit of alliteration going on there. So when Mr. Epstein was taken into custody for the second time, this time no house arrest, no slap on the wrist. Mr. Epstein, you rascal, constantly fucking those kids. We're going to have to punish you this time. I think it made people nervous. I think Mr. Epstein was, of course, murdered to keep quiet about what was going on. Have you noticed how it just disappeared in the news? Until recently with this article. Anybody else notice some strange coincidences going on this last week or so? Let me see if I can lay it out. See if I'm crazy on this, chat. Maybe you can follow where I'm going with this. There are 3 stories I've been noticing, all involving the intelligence community. The first would be Mr. Epstein. You can't provide underage hookers to the most powerful people in the world without some intelligence community organization paying attention to you, perhaps facilitating it. Maybe it's not American, maybe it's another nation. I don't want to be too on the nose about it, but nonetheless, this story pops up during this week. What other stories do we have? Well, we've got the impeachment going on of Donald Trump, and the key witness, the person that lodged the complaint, what do you know? Looks like they're a CIA asset. So that's 2 stories involving the intelligence community. What would the third be? Oh yeah, the finders. The fucking FBI releasing documents related to an organization that basically stole kids and then fucked with their heads by performing fake satanic rituals, sexually abusing them and beating them, all to own the Russians, apparently. Not 100% certain. Hopefully our guest will be able to illuminate on this subject a little bit more than I can as to what the fucking motivation for that whole shit show is. So you've got 3 things: Epstein, the finders, and of course our impeachment guy. I'm just going to call him impeachment guy. It sounds neat. It seems like Deep State's getting ass fucked this week. It's a bad week to be CIA. Oh, you glowing motherfuckers, you must be just ass mad. Furious, fuming about the things that are going on. Your dirty little secrets are getting just drawn out into the public. Fucking shameful. I thought you were supposed to be super secret spies and shit. This is sloppy. Sloppy work, CIA. I hear the FBI and the NSA call each other daily to laugh at you. Just to shit directly in your face. For your fucking incompetence. should probably do a small recap of what the last stream was about before we get into the new stuff and continue off where we left off. In Tallahassee, Florida, in 1987, police were alerted to a bizarre situation taking place in a park. Two men were escorting 6 children. Upon contact by the police, the children seemed to be malnourished, covered in bites and scratches, wearing dirty clothes, looked disheveled, smelled awful, didn't have underwear on, mismatching socks. Everything was just screaming, this is not fucking right. When the police decided to take all these people into custody, children and adults, the 2 adults apparently tried to fake a fainting attack. That's a new one. Fake a heart attack, get out of getting arrested, apparently. I'll have to give that a try the next time I get a DUI. But it didn't work. Once they were brought to the police station, somebody, for whatever reason, decided to call the police and say, hey, I'm going to murder those kids. So they put them into protective custody. Fast forward a little bit of time, you've got the U.S. Customs officials, the FBI, and other organizations all investigating this, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. Search warrants are served. Materials are uncovered, including bizarre ritualistic photos involving men in white sheets having children decapitate goats. I've heard some people try to excuse away this activity and say, well, these weren't satanic rituals. The kids were just learning how to hunt and skin an animal. Well, that's weird because I grew up in a family that hunted. Grew up in a family that owned a farm. You know the one thing you never really did when you were dealing with animals? When you were killing them for their fur or their meat? You didn't decapitate the fucking thing and then play with its blood and hand it off to the young kids. It's not really at the top of the fucking list. They also found nude images of the children. And in one report, they talked about underground maps in D.C., a secret network of tunnels. Sound familiar? Might make you recollect a recent event, something called Pizzagate, where a pizzeria shop with connections to people in the DNC, like Podesta, was accused of running a child prostitution ring out of a pizza shop and maybe utilizing underground tunnels to do it. Now, of course, that's been beaten to death in the press, and I won't really go into Pizzagate. But I'd like to remind you, when the owner initially spoke with the press, they said that they kept their ingredients, their tomatoes and everything else, in the basement. And then later on, when they were pressed on having a secret underground, I don't even know what you'd call it, cathedral of fucking pain, told them they don't have a basement. It's a little sketchy. Nonetheless. So you have all these different intelligence organizations and police organizations looking into these people. They must have been arrested, right? I mean, one of the officers that examined 2 of the children said they showed signs of sexual molestation. One child showed signs of human bite marks on their fucking arms. It would be insane not to put those kids into protective custody and arrest the adults. Nope, they let them go. They let them go, and the FBI seemingly interfered with the warrant searches. The evidence that was gathered was said to be sent to Tallahassee Police Department, but oopsie, it got lost. One of the later police reports talking to a witness in the area before the group moved onward into Tallahassee and said, oh, I remember those men and the 10 children they had. 10 children. They were arrested with 6. So what happened to the other 4 children? Now, one of the mysteries from the first stream was a kind of confusing police report to read where they were speaking of a writer. I thought they were referring to a journalist. Somebody told me, no, that's what the officers referred to or as themselves when they're putting down a report. It's just how they do it. It still doesn't explain why in one paragraph they say no evidence related to the search warrants that's been speculated has been found, and yet in the next paragraph say, oh no, we totally found that shit. So there's a lot of very bizarre stuff inside this FBI report. Perhaps the weirdest would be that this is focusing on the finders, and yet, when you're reading through it, and customs officials are talking about how many pedophiles they busted and their operations and scope and the cost, inserted between that and a letter from the customs officials to somebody asking about investigations, there are fucking maps from a archaeologist about McMartin Preschool, which is one of the big stories regarding kids accusing teachers of making them participate in satanic rituals and being molested. So you've got to ask yourself, what in the fuck is going on? It seems like a very bizarre thing to kind of just shuffle in there. Just shuffle it in, page 48, call it a fucking day. So that's where we are. That's what we've gone through. And the 180 pages of the FBI report, that sums up the big keystone pieces. I may have missed a thing here or there, but that should give you a general idea of where we left off. We still have 120 pages to go. We still have somebody coming on to discuss the things that are related to the finders, namely people that have investigated them, what I'm assuming, who they are, where they went, what's going on. Oh, that's right. I did forget one piece. One tiny piece. Oopsie. It turns out the Finders organization is connected to the CIA. In fact, CIA agents have outright admitted that, telling the police that they're stepping on their toes about the investigation. They are also supplied with passports into hostile nations at the time, such as North Korea, North Vietnam, and China. Or no, I'm sorry, and Russia. And even the Tallahassee incident, one of the witnesses before they got down to Florida had said, oh yeah, they had said they were going to go to Hawaii and then China. So it seems like there's a lot of fucked up shit going on. And my original hypothesis, my theory on what this is pretty straightforward. I think the CIA used this group to do terrible shit, to own the Russians or some other fucking thing. And, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt at least this far and to say it probably grew out of control. And this is some kind of a cover-up because of the sheer embarrassment of having participated in this just disgusting shit. Now, we could speculate why the FBI decided to drop it. Again, it's interesting timing, considering everything that's going on with the intelligence community for the past week or so. So I will get ready here to bring our guest in. We'll talk for about a half an hour to an hour, go over the rest of the pages. Nice spooky Halloween stream. Read a few super chats here before we get into the bulk of it, so I can break this up a little bit. I hope you're all having a great Halloween. Or I'm sorry, a happy, spooky, scary skeleton ween. Let's see what we've got here. From Camille Taggart. Oh, God, fucking awful at pronouncing things. I hope the stream gives lots of laughs. I don't know if you tuned into the right one. I'm really sorry, Camille. They're needed. My dog, my best friend, is dying right now, and it hurts so bad. Well, you have my sympathies. I am a pet owner. I've always loved dogs, preferred them over cats, and it is tough when your pet dies, especially when you have to put them down because they're just too sick or they're too old. It's rough. You have my sympathies. From Point Curation, happy Halloween. Hope to see lots of Justin Trudeau costumes out there. Are you going to be able to see him at night? If it's Justin Trudeau, he's going to blend into the background. From Padre Speaks, Jim, you need the Heavy Grinder remix of Pure Power in your ear. Groypers rise up and dress respectively. Optimistic Nihilist, please do a video about Mike Stuckberry. He's a British Antifa journalist who got fired from his teaching job after trying to ban the word banter, but there is so much more cringe to explore. The name sounds familiar, but I can't place a face to it. Leon and Claire Kennedy, Jim, when are you and Jade going to get married and pop out some Zoomers? Oh, well, I'm going to wait for the second Civil War to end first before I start popping babies out. From Synac 8, just the PSA, Greedfall and Outer Worlds aren't good games. Wait until they go on sale before you go and buy them. And Epstein didn't commit suicide. I agree. Also, from what I hear, Outer Worlds has quite the unique cast of characters for NPCs. Lots of very ugly women. What is it with Western games being able to make attractive women? Is that some kind of a fucking disability? It's like any Western dev that tries to make a game, regardless of what it is, makes the most ass ugly women that have ever existed in the digital landscape. Foxman2248, hey Jim, Monograph is threatening to call VP Pence to sick the Secret Service on some dude he's in a slap fight with. I'm sure the Secret Service loved getting involved in YouTube arguments. Drew, never forget, Comet Ping Pong hard drive shot by gunman. Layton Star, would the country be better off without religion? No, I don't think it would. Zimzam Flimflam, I'm a heterosexual white male and I own Chainlink. You're going to make it, bro. One day you're going to be driving that Lambo right through the McDonald's drive-thru. You're going to look at the poor son of a bitch serving you and you'll be like, that was me before I believed in Chainlink. Again, from Zimzam Flimflam, Chainlink is a scam, by the way. Don't buy any. You can't trick me. You just want it all for yourself. I'm going to go buy 3 times as much right now. From Winter Wolf, you're doing God's work, Jimbo. Me and the girlfriend have really been enjoying your streams. Have you ever heard about the theories about JonBenet Ramsey's father being a part of a pedo ring? I've heard a few. I've heard some theories regarding her murder and who took part in it. Speculation between the father and the brother. Lots of really fucked up shit. From Legato Amati, Metokur, circumcised or uncut, yourself and preference. Myself and well, I don't really have a preference for other men's penises. I'm not King of Bowl. As for am I circumcised or uncut? Oh, they snipped me, bro. They snipped me and they made some makeup out of it or something. I don't know what they do with them, but they collect them like they're fucking Lucky Charms. The Mind Corporation. Greta was an agent of the deep state to distract from Epstein. Oh, you need to eat some bugs, sir. We'll read 4 more here and then we'll jump in. Lou Raquel, hello, all my N-words. From Krogan Scormhammer. All that comes to mind with this whole thing is that they went on with Whitey Bugler and Boston FBI sketchy ass. Permafrost Deep State only killed Epstein once. Yahoo! And finally, Arrowist. So basically, I'm first of all pretty much like basically, I've been going ahead and have pretty much been basically diddling kids. Ross, I didn't know you were super chatting, people. Thanks for checking in. All right, let me get the hangout set up here. Bring on our guest, and we're going to get into the deep lore behind the fucking finders. So this should be good here. 1 second, chat. Just bear with me as I get this set up. Hopefully I don't fuck anything up. I am an old, confused man like Seb Gorka. I don't know what the fuck's going on. In fact, let me complete the aesthetic of who Seb Gorka is by doing retarded shit that nobody should ever do. I mean, I've already gone over my limit. What are we, 20 minutes into this, and I haven't had 28 breaks? But I'll pull a Seb Gorka while I get this set up. Buy my fucking hats. I can't sell you Metamucil. I'm sorry, chat. I'm not capable of doing that right now. But I can sell you some fucking hats. These are the best hats ever made by slave labor. Only the most despairing Chinese children are allowed to work on these hats. Look at that stitch work. Do you know they get whipped if they don't complete them on time? And those mugs are high quality. I'm talking the best clay available and mixed with the finest, purest orphan tears. Those are available for purchase. Oh, I'm going to hell. But that's fine. All right, let's get our guest in here. All right, they should be here momentarily, hopefully. If everything is set up properly. And then we can get on with it. If we have any problems with the guest, we'll just jump right into the FBI report. So, either or works just fine. So, how's your evening going, chat? You enjoying yourselves? Yes. Wait, if I really wanted to make it the whole Seb Gorka experience, right now I should be just walking in a circle on webcam, looking at my phone and crying because people on the internet are laughing at me. I mean, that's something that apparently happens a lot to Seb Gorka. I don't know what to tell you. Hopefully our guy jumps in here soon. I forgot, there's a bit of a delay on the stream. YouTube is fucking with their technical side and just ruining their live streaming experience. I don't know why they're doing it, but it's something they've decided needs to fucking happen. In fact, there's a little alert on the live stream page that tells you they're getting rid of the events and they're going to make it mobile only. Because, you know, everybody loves that mobile shit. You just got to make it more inconvenient for the end user. That's the YouTube way. And maybe they saw Twitter and thought, we can fuck this up more than they can. Let's just butcher it. All right, I'll give our guest 5 minutes here. Probably take them a little bit to get here. You know what, I'll read a few more super chats to kill some time. And then we're going to get into the finders, which is still just fucking amazing to me. Anybody else find it weird that no press outlets are really talking about this? Anybody find it strange that this gets dumped? And even if they don't think, oh my God, this is the most amazing shit on earth, there's still a lot of explosive stuff in there. You'd think somebody would be talking about it. But only 1 or 2 places. The majority have just completely ignored it. Pretended it didn't happen. Hello? Hello?
Hey, Jim, it's me. It's John. How you doing?
Okay, fantastic. How are you doing?
Doing well. I'm excited to talk about this. Been a long-term fan.
Oh yeah, let me pull down the hats thing so people take this seriously. Sorry. All right, one second. I think our audio is good. We should be great. Do you want to? I guess we should start with. You want to just give a quick introduction to the audience?
Yes, my name is John Brisson. I run the We've Read the Documents YouTube channel. I have been investigating the finders for about 3 years, as well as other parts of Pedogate, whether it's McMartin Preschool or Franklin Cover Up or Jeffrey Epstein. And I'm currently writing a book on the finders, about halfway done.
Fantastic. All right. So if you had a chance now, when the FBI dropped this, which was like 3 4 days ago, if you had a chance to read through what they released, and how does that compare to the documents that were kind of already circulating before their disclosure?
Yes, I have. I've read through them. I've done a stream on them. There is a difference. There was FBI documents that released by a Freedom of Information request by Vice Reporter Ali Conti about 2 years ago. And some of the evidence that's in this new FBI vault drop is new compared to what was in previously before. And I never thought I would see the Metropolitan Police Department document, Jim, because it was classified as secret. And I was shocked when I opened up the files looking through there and I saw the Washington Metropolitan Police Department document, and it's still redacted, but it was still some information that even I didn't know. And I believe it was written by Detective Jim Bradley of the Metropolitan Police Department, was who wrote that document.
No, the
Um,
Metropolitan one, that's the one based in DC. The Tallahassee one's a 75-page one. The Metro one
yes,
is like 20 or 30, isn't it?
yes, and there's also supposed to be other reports too. Another one that's classified as top secret or top serial that still has not been released and no one has ever seen, and that was in the previous FBI leaks.
Okay. Well, let me start like this, I guess. Because I remember this a bit. I've heard of the finders here and there. Maybe it was a video I watched on it, something like that. But it wasn't anything that was really at the forefront. I saw this get released and I started reading through it. And the things that really struck out to me as I was reading this like, I guess, three things. One were the inconsistencies between how the two gentlemen that were arrested in Tallahassee tried to present themselves and the reality that seemed to be taking place with the police.
Yeah,
Like they try to make it like, oh, we're just kind of a hippie commune. It's an alternative living style, and yet you read the police reports and you're hearing things like children with bite marks, scratches, smelly, disheveled, told they're only able to eat as a reward. And one female officer had said something about, well, it looks like there's evidence they've been molested, and just that on its own, even if you took away the whole cult thing, even if you took away, everything else we've learned about it, it seems very bizarre to me, their story and the reality of what kind of seems to have happened behind the scenes, that these kids were ever released or that these people weren't nailed to a wall. I mean, that's the first thing. What are your thoughts kind of on that?
well, in the bare minimum, these children were abused by their quote unquote alternative lifestyle. If you take out the sexual molestation that may or may not occur, we don't have strict concrete evidence like we have in the McMartin case, where if you look at the medical documents, there are many. There's at least 5 or 6 that we have that went to trial for McMartin that's definitive that they were molested by Ray Bucky. But with the Finders kids, with Jordan Ereko, the female, her hymen was partially broken, but they were debating whether or not that was signs of sexual abuse. We don't have enough really details on that. However, I'll get to a minute of why that may be. You'll find it very interesting. The boy Max Livingstone, he had a lack of anal sphincter control, but that could have been because of his poor diet. Because the fighters, like you said, were only giving food as reward, and they probably were given vegan food. So the sexual molestation, it was never really fully investigated. The FBI, the Jacksonville FBI, shut it down, and the guy that they brought in to investigate it was a guy named Nyman Greenberg, who was the head of the Chicago Masonry Hospital, and he had been the main witness or expert for the defense, should I say, in McMartin, to claim that the children were not molested then, and in another case called the Jewish Community Center case, the JCC. So this is the third case that Greenberg had, quote unquote,
So
fixed, in
so
my opinion.
so Dr. Greenberg, is telling people the kids weren't molested in this one, the Jewish Community Center. What was the third one?
McMartin Preschool. He was the main.
So this guy's involved in all of this shit.
Yes,
That's
yes.
really bizarre.
So he comes in, he says, nothing to see here. Don't worry, everything's perfectly fine. These kids are well adjusted, even though, you know, the kids urinated and defecated on the rug at the Tallahassee Police Department after they had been put into custody.
So they're shitting and pissing on the floor like an animal. The way some of those police reports made it sound was like the kids were, because they said they hadn't seen, like they weren't exposed to things like staplers and TVs and
No.
radios. How is it that you could? This is what I find so bizarre about it, and even just the small pieces I've seen. You have kids come in with clear signs of at least physical abuse.
Yes.
You have kids come in that are underfed, malnourished, smelly, they're not clean, they have dirty clothes or missing clothes. They're confused about modern things, they're confused about modern concepts. How would the FBI or anybody involved in this investigation say, you know what, no, it looks good, we're not even going to push it further than this? I mean, what's your speculation as to that?
Well, they pushed. I mean, the Tallahassee Police Department did. They tried their best. I mean, they put the kids into protective custody. They went in foster care for a time period. The finders women showed up that were their mothers. I mean, the mothers and the fathers. For example, um, the guy that gave the false report is Houlihan, which turned out to be what's his name? It was Douglas Ammerman, and it was Hollowell, James Hollowell. Well, Hollowell, he was the father of stepfather of Jordan Orico, the girl, and John Paul Pope, whose name was James Michael Hollowell III. So he was the father of two of the children, and his wife was Paula Orico. So the other children that were there, the six children they were brought into custody from the van. They all had parents within the finders. Now we're
Actually,
now we're
could I interrupt for a second? Because
yeah.
somebody had said something on Twitter. I didn't have a chance to look into this. It was regarding the finder saying that they had moved, or that either recently or currently had tried to be based in like Thailand or Taiwan. And you said
Yes.
the mother's
Yes.
name was Ariko. Were a lot of these kids mixed? I mean, were they bringing in women from Asia because they thought it would keep them quiet? Do you think, or
The all women seem actually to be Caucasian from what I can tell.
okay?
Said was one of the last names. Noth was one of the last names. Now later, the interesting thing you're talking about that with the whole Taiwan connection was there was an investigative journalist named Wendell Minnick. He wrote about the finders in a book about spies in the 1990s. Now there's a claim that he, became a finder, went to Taiwan, got kicked out of South Korea because he claims he was writing about North Korea, which doesn't make any sense. But there was a claim in a message board back in sometime in the mid 2000s that instead it was because he was allegedly molesting school children, and that's why he got kicked out. But anyway, when I tried to contact him on LinkedIn, Jim, to get any information from him, he added me. But as soon as I mentioned, hey, what about the finders, he immediately blocked me.
Yeah, well, I could imagine there's going to be a stigma surrounding this. I mean, even though it doesn't seem to be covered quite a bit, at least for that initial week or two in '87, it seemed to really pop up in the news. And then for a little while too in the kind of early '90s, I think, when Congressman Rose is it, and others were,
Lewis,
yeah,
Congressman Lewis and Congressman Rose.
yeah, when they were kind of, I guess, taking a look at it, if it was their constituents that were interested and brought it to their attention, or if it was a pet project, I'm not 100% certain.
I know the answer to that. It was the investigator who I interviewed on my channel, Henry Clements, brought up to Tom Lewis that he had found information that there was a connection between the Glendale Montessori School case and James Toward and the finders.
No, I think the second thing that really struck me. So the first thing is the state of the children and not continuing the investigation. The second thing that really stuck out to me, kind of when looking over these documents, would be that it seemed like the police departments that were involved, whether that was Metro or Tallahassee, really did have a concern. They were really concerned about trying to follow up with this. But it seemed, on the other hand, that anybody that was in, in a intelligence organization or even customs or those kind of groups, almost wanted to, I don't know if they wanted to sweep it under the rug, but there was a big disconnect between these two investigators. Is that something you've noticed too, or is there a story to it?
100% correct. The Tallahassee Police Department definitely seemed like they were trying to get down to the bottom of things until they were told by the Jacksonville FBI, according to Henry Clements, to shut it down. The same with the Metropolitan Police Department with John Stitcher and Bradley Stitcher, more than Bradley Stitcher. In Toby Terrell's book, The Game Caller, Toby Terrell is a Finders member, Robert Gardner Terrell. He talks about how Stitcher, this FBI agent that shut it down up there, her name was Athenia Veronius, who was actually who Clarice Starling was based off of in The Silence of the Lambs, and owns a paranormal investigation like thing now here in my home state of North Carolina. Is what she does now. And anyway, so they set up a meeting, and Stitcher's like yelling at Toby, like, I know you guys are shooting child pornography. I know you're shooting porn. I'm going to take you guys down and everything like that. And eventually, Toby just like stops talking to him, and he gets mad. He just walks away, and he mutters under his breath, "Bullshit." And Athenia Veronius, according to Toby's Terrell book, and I have to get the exact quote. I want to get it out for you. She pretty much tells him that that even before like when the investigation started, when she contacts him at the CIA computer training front company Future Enterprises, which the Finders was also involved in, she pretty much tells him, "Oh, well, we'll put a lid on this thing." Wasn't the FBI supposed to investigate it, Jim? Why would they put a lid on something they haven't even investigated? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing that I never understood. It seemed like so many people were involved with this, or were at least aware of it. I can't remember if it was Tallahassee or Metro, but they had looked for information through Interpol. I know the FBI was involved in a part. I know CIA agents were talking about it or a question about it. I know that Customs was involved in it, and it just seems really bizarre to me that you could have that many organizations all kind of be like people saying, "Hey, what the fuck is going on?" And almost not one of, I mean, it seemed like nobody at a higher level wanted to take this on, which I think that brings me to my third point, the three things that really struck me on this. The last one, and what I found really surreal, are buried in the first 180 pages when they're talking about this. Uh, well, I guess it's two parts. One is the age of the finders, because there seem to be multiple dates about it. Some people saying, well, the 80s, others saying no, early 60s to early or late 60s to early 70s. CIA agents saying, well, you're kind of stepping on our toes, being directly involved in it. And then, of course, the issue of the passports to hostile nations at the time, like Russia or North Vietnam or was it North Korea? I can't remember. And even the statement they gave in Tallahassee, where one of the witnesses said, oh, well, they were saying they were going to go to Hawaii and then go to China. So, I mean, I don't know how much of the first stream you heard, but my hypothesis on this was that I think this was a CIA run thing, and I
It
think
is.
I think that I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to think the CIA is so horribly evil that they'd run a child sex cult. So I think that it was some kind of a counterintelligence thing, and I don't know if people went rogue or what the hell happened, but it feels like they're embarrassed or ashamed of it, and they don't ever want people finding out that it got out of control. So do you? I guess.
Yes, I can answer your question,
Okay, go
and I
ahead.
did listen to the first stream. Marion Petty had been involved with, I mean, since the very beginning when he was in the military, when he was in the army, which later eventually became the Air Force. Um, he was he was owning like brownstone operation back then of apartments that during World War II OSS officers Office of Strategic Services, before, which eventually became the CIA, would just come through his apartments, just come through. Okay, like even back then, like before the Finders was founded in the '60s, before Petty came back for being discharged in the military after getting intelligence training from the Jesuit backed university, Georgetown University, and later getting more training in Europe and being, coming back here and starting the Finders. I mean, the CIA has been involved in this even when it was the OSS. Like that's how far back this goes. So
So
they weren't.
so we're talking 40s and 50s.
Yes,
So what I mean, what do you think the initial purpose of this was? Was this counterintelligence, or what would I can't I'm trying to think of men sitting in an office meeting, at some intelligence community site and pitching this. What was the pitch? How did they present this to other people and say this is a good idea?
we need a group that walks around and does counterintelligence and spreads information and listens and infiltrates different businesses and groups. It just seems like they're a kooky experimental group But we also need them to set up brownstone operations, which brownstone operations is like blackmailing. Okay, so a way they can black people through sexual blackmail. Usually, some people say that Hugh Hefner did it through the Playboy Mansion. You know, they would set up a congressman or someone of importance up there and be like, hey, you know, Hef be like, hey, I got a bunny up there for you. You know, a person goes up there, has sex with said girl, or even male if they're homosexual, and then Hef comes back, or some CIA guy like pops around the corner and is like, yeah, you know that person you just slept with, they're 15. We
This
have you on
this that
camera.
this almost sounds like the mafia, in Vegas back in the day.
Yes.
Like get a hooker in a hotel room with a congressman and then film it through a hole in the wall.
Very much so, and that's what the Franklin cover-up was, where the FBI was actually implicated by the CIA in running that one.
So do you think the FBI dropped this as payback for that?
I would say, yeah, there is a possibility there was a war between the intelligence agencies, whether or not it's a true war or some sort of fabricated war by the world order. But yeah, they do seem to, implicate each other. CIA implicates FBI and Franklin, FBI implicates CIA and even though the FBI is involved too, they're both actually covering up the finders. Both the FBI and the CIA both are. And you're right about the passports. They had, and a document that I sent you had never been seen beforehand. It was, you saw the redacted copy of the chronology report in the releases. I was actually in the old FBI release too, but I sent you the unredacted copy. It literally says in the unredacted copy they had passports to North Korea, USSR at the time, and North Vietnam. And they also had passports in China. And Ramon J. Martinez talks about in his customs report that they had telexes to sell children to China. And Toby Terrell talks in his book that they had Chinese people staying, like residents staying at uh, the W Street apartments, where even there was a student that was caught during the raid that was a Georgetown anatomy student that lived there. So China is also heavily involved in this too as well, and also as I said,
The student that was caught. Now, was that a? I'm sorry. Was that a Chinese student staying
it
over
was
there?
a Chinese student who was at Georgetown University learning anatomy. Yes.
I find that interesting because just because of the stream that I had done earlier with about Nick Fuentes, one of the questions they had brought up was the dancing Israelis. But if you look into that, it says, well, the speculation is the five gentlemen that were alleged to have been celebrating on 9/11 were foreign intelligence from Israel, but that they were posing as students. It seems like the student cover story is something that I guess is commonplace, or it feels commonplace, of getting somebody into a foreign country and then using them to some effect.
Yes, and when we're talking about Israel, for some reason, that's something that was in the new FBI documents that, for the life of me, I can't substantiate. Neither George from CabDev.org, another investigator, can either, who brought this to my attention. For some reason, Jonathan J. Pollard, the former American who spied for Israel, gave them top secret classified information. Um, he's just listed in there that they had interviewed him. Now, I don't know if they interviewed him over the finders. I doesn't say, but find that very interesting.
Yeah, well, a lot of this stuff is. I'm trying to think. So okay, so we've got police, we've got local police departments that seem to be very concerned about what's going on. We've got intelligence community that's seemingly wanting to sweep it under the rug. One of the things that was brought up in one of the police reports, I think it was from Metro, was talking about maps in D.C. Now, was that something they were looking for, or something they found?
Yes, they were trying to get. Okay, so for some reason we don't know why. I think it's because of the tunnels. Because they talk about the tunnels in McMartin. They talk about a tunnel possibly being under the W Street apartments, where there was a food hole. Jordan Arigo talks about that. One of the finders girls that was taken into custody in Tallahassee. But the Washington Metropolitan Police Department, for some reason or other, trying to get the tunnel maps under Washington D.C. that are classified as secret. And you have to remember too, the finder's warehouse is very close where Craig B. Spence in the Shirarama, Colorama neighborhood, where he was running his brownstone operation with Lawrence E. King from the Franklin scandal. Lawrence E. King's actually still walking around free, by the way. And the Pizzagate supposed tunnels are, as well under Comet Pizza Ping Pong. It's all in that general area. No
Well,
more than
yeah, that
15 miles away from each other. The
that
Finders Warehouse, all of them.
yeah, that's what struck me as a bit weird. I mean, I never got super into the Pizzagate thing. I know other people did. But the thing that always stuck with me was that interview with the owner. Is that Elefante or what was the name of the owner of the Common Ping Pong?
James Alefantis.
Alefantis. There we go.
James
Where,
Alefantis, Jim.
yep, where he had said, "Oh, are you there? Hello?
Hey, Jim, I lost you there for a minute. James Alefantis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
I am.
okay. Yeah, my internet shit out on me for a second. I got to wait for the the chat to catch up.
Well, when you're messing with glow in the darks, it's gonna happen.
Hopefully, okay. All right. We'll wait for the chat to catch up. Perfect timing. But no. I remember he'd given an interview talking about having a basement, and then he had done a follow-up interview saying he didn't have a basement. And I know that it was kind of in the general area. And then you find out the finders are this report drops, and they're talking about one of the warrants being served, and they're talking about tunnels. And then you've got the McMartin thing. What can you explain to me why the McMartin stuff was put? It was just 2 pages, but it was inserted between customs talking about arrests and writing a letter about their statistics. It seems really weird that that's inserted there because it just sticks out. It's like it's begging you to read it, and it doesn't fit in with the flow of the other things presented in the order they're presented.
No, and it's actually in the old FBI documents too, as well, presented in between that letter to Tom Lewis, giving the statistics of the child pornography unit that Ramon J. Martinez was a part of, and his boss John Sullivan was a part of, but it got shut down after the finders. They tried to reopen it. Tom Lewis did in '93 when the case was reopened, and between a letter stating that someone had gotten it. So it's just stuck there. Now the first page with the map, that's never been seen before. That wasn't even part of Gunderson's report. Okay, that's brand new. And actually, Ed Opperman had the guy on who did that actual specific drawing. I believe he did the drawing, or he did the report where he said the tunnels were actually underneath the car garage, and it actually was confirmed in that document that I've never seen before. So that was new. Why it's in between there, I don't know. The only connection we have between McMartin and the Finders is Toby Terrell in his book, The Game Caller, says for some reason during Goatgate, where the Finders claims, oh, it was just animal husbandry, Jim, that the kids were taking goat fetuses out, and a kid holds a goat's butchered head for a picture. It's all in good fun, like you mentioned earlier about hunting. It's all animal husbandry. Don't worry about it. Well, for some reason during Goatgate, when all this stuff is going on, he goes to San Diego where the Finders have a base. And they had one in San Francisco and one in San Diego. And he drives up to Manhattan Beach when McMartin is going on. Why? Why? Why of all times then?
Yeah, I found it very bizarre. I mean, I read the AP, I think it was AP, Associated Press article about the goat thing. And it seemed like people talking about it at the time found that to be really bizarre. I know in the 80s and 90s, again, I touched on this a little bit in the first stream, satanic panic seemed to be the term that was used to kind of dismiss this. And I get it, you're arguing, oh, it's just, it sounds like something that's crazy, right? It sounds like something from a horror movie. So I can understand people saying, oh, you're just being hysterical. But then when you go through this report and you start reading the police reports and especially the kind of the back and forth banter through faxes and just reporting themselves, it seems like there is something there. And it seems like if this information were more publicly available at the time in regards to the finders and McMartin and other things, people wouldn't have just waved it away with their hand. They wouldn't have been like, oh, it's not a big deal.
Oh, I mean, what I always say about Raymond Bucky is the bare minimum. Many children were molested by Ray Bucky. I mean, he was convicted. Of course, it was overturned. And the grand maximum, satanic ritual abuse was occurring to McMartin, which I believe it was. But something from, that they always, if you always want to go to McMartin, other than the medical evidence of something is very weird. I do want to briefly say something about McMartin real quick that you'll find very interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is they gave testimony in the trial, and I want to get exactly the testimony they'd given. Where so would Jim, let's say your future kids, would you let the man that's at the daycare read Playboys wearing sweatpants or short while they're sitting on his lap while he's reading Playboy magazine?
Oh, okay, so this was at McMartin, you said?
Yes, this was happened by Raymond Bucky. He was holding kids in his lap while he was reading Playboy.
So you've got Raymond Bucky at the McMartin preschool. with
Yes.
kids sitting in his lap while he's reading Playboy. No, I'd probably
And
I'd freak
his
out if that was my kid.
his mother says it's fine. And also Peggy Bucky gave testimony that she was molested. She would know like something like this if Raymond was a molester, but she would always check Raymond for boners while the kids were sitting in his lap or hanging on his neck. That she'd visually check her son for boners.
So she was performing a penis inspection
Yes.
just to make sure nothing nefarious is going on.
Yes.
Yeah,
And that it's okay for, according to her, Playboy's a very popular magazine, Jim. So I really wouldn't have much to say about it.
that strikes me as really bizarre. And kind of looking at you touched on this a little bit. Looking at McMartin, from the details that I remember about that, the kids, what they said, and how it was kind of dismissed. Looking at what was going on with the finders, and then kind of looking at even like the Epstein stuff, the more recent stuff, or even Navixum or whatever it is, that kind of corporate sex cult. It seems really strange to me that there's so many parallels, there's so many common threads amongst all of these stories. That you've got large groups of people, they seem to be touching upon, um, you know, certain themes that kind of keep reoccurring. Now, how would you explain that? I mean, the McMartin kids talked about kind of weird satanic shit. The Finders group, with the goat pictures. You've got Epstein with all the weird kind of imagery that's connected to that. With Pizzagate, you had kind of a weird connection to like spirit cooking. When you're looking at this, and I mean, kind of even going on what we just talked about, how maybe this was some kind of extension of some old OSS program. Uh, why the Satanism?
I mean, I don't have an answer. I mean, it also happened um, it also happened in, I mean, it's happened in so many cases that was happened during the quote unquote satanic panic, and it happened during the Franklin scandal too. Even before the Franklin scandal became national news and it went to trial, there were indications of Satanism. Of course, the Franklin scandal went as far as up as Ronald Wilson Reagan and George H.W. Bush with Lawrence E. King and Callboys, that famous Washington Times article. Callboys going to the White House at midnight for good old George H.W. Bush. You know,
Yeah, I
so
do remember that a bit. Yep.
my answer. I mean, as a Christian, Satan. But as far as other than that, I mean, if
But
you're looking at it from a,
just
if you're looking at it from a secular standpoint, I have no idea
well,
why the Satanism is
even a
there.
even a secular standpoint is going to have a difficulty explaining away. It just seems so cliched, right? It seems like something out of a Hollywood script, and yet it keeps recurring in all these different instances.
Yeah, I mean, even in reports where they didn't make mainstream news and everything, it happens. In a lot of these cases, before the main case breaks out, it's reported. This, I mean, I don't have the answer. I don't have any. I mean, from a Christian standpoint, it's because the elite, worship Satan. From a secular standpoint, I have no idea why this occurs because brownstone, operations with child trafficking and pedophilia is as horrific it is. The elite can get out of it, blackmail and selling child pornography. And Rossi Chet's witch hunt narrative, where it talks a lot about McMartin, he says there was one woman during the 1980s, Jim, who got caught selling child porn out of her house. And she had a family and everything, and she was making $500,000 a month in
See,
the
that's
80s.
insane. I suppose one of the weirdest things, right? Even outside of a religious or secular view of why this would be going on, what I fail to be able to kind of come to grips with is why would the intelligence community, who why would some typical FBI agent or CIA agent or somebody in customs, why would somebody who might have some inside information who's looking at this go on, why would they be okay with it? I mean, surely they'd be able to look at it and be like, it is kind of fucking weird. Everybody's doing the Satanism shit and they're all doing the child porn stuff. Maybe we need to reevaluate our intelligence programs.
Well, I mean, some people in the lower levels have. Ramon J. Martinez was a customs agent. His boss, John Sullivan, was, a further up the chain customs agent. So some people have seen this and they're like, what the hell? But you got to remember, through a lot of these intelligence agencies, Jim, even within the finders, there's a lot of compartmentalization. Your average agent, they may not know what they do, but the higher you go up in that chain, Oh yeah, the more that they definitely know what they're up to. They're definitely glowing in the dark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So compartmentalization is usually how they get by with, even with the finders. Not everybody in the finders cult was probably up to no good, or anybody who had interactions with the finders was up to no good. Like investigative journalist Charles Soka, who was up, knew the finders in the 70s and the 80s. But through compartmentalization, the main group, what they call the crazies, because you have the crazies and the zanies, and the zanies was head by Hunter Patch Adams, who got the money for his Gesundheit Institute by Marion Petty, okay, to start that hospital. All right.
So
So
with this compartmentalization, it almost sounds like a cell structure, like you deal with
yes,
terrorists, where they've got it divided up. So the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. Do you think that was intentional when it was set up?
always. That's how they all operate. I mean, even just the basic structure of government, when we're talking about, the NSA, or even if, let's say, they weren't involved in any of this, Jim, okay, you would have to do compartmentalization in the government just for secrets. You would have to. But I think it's more nefarious than that. I think they're running Browns. I mean, look at Iran Contra. Iran Contra was drug running from Latin America, that's talked about in Gary Webb's Dark Alliance. You have gun running that was sponsored by Israel to Iran. That's who brokered the weapons for the Iran Contra affair, was Israel. A lot of people leave out Israel. And then you have kid running, which is the Franklin scandal, because Oliver North met with Michael Aquino and Lawrence E. King, that whole Brownstone scandal that was going on there. So just think about Iran Contra was all three of those things. You know,
Well, I guess a follow-up question to that, kind of looking at this. Okay, so let's say our American intelligence, some people know, some people don't know. And some people are bothered by it, like the customs officials that, kind of spoke out or were a little freaked out by it. If this is some kind of an operation to blackmail or to control politicians and maybe to do some kind of foreign espionage or blackmail overseas, surely other governments would be aware of what's going on. I find it strange that you wouldn't have a Russia or a China or somebody coming out and saying, "Well, look at this American program." I mean, look
but they're
what.
running their own rings too, like the Duterte affair in European Union. So if
So,
they're all running their own rings, they're not. It's like Epstein. You can't. They couldn't. Trump does have some connections to Epstein, and Clinton has some connections to Epstein, right? Clinton. Some people say Clinton more than Trump. Some people say Trump more than Clinton. Okay. But but neither campaign could use Epstein, so so supposedly, much as I do believe there are true parts of Pizzagate, don't get me wrong, Jim. Roger Stone supposedly leaked Pizzagate because it implicated, the more liberal side of things.
well,
I know
my,
myself, I'm a
well,
conservative,
yeah.
so
Well, my problem with Roger Stone is, he was claiming, I can't remember how long ago this was, that he was trying to be, people were trying to assassinate him using like plutonium. I don't know if you're familiar with this. This was
yeah, it
on.
was like polonium. He went on
Uh,
Alex Jones,
yeah,
and he's
polonium. Yeah,
polonium poison.
yeah. If he had polonium poisoning, he'd be dead. You know what I mean? I just
Yes,
found it
yeah,
so strange that he was claiming he was being poisoned with a radioactive agent like that.
yeah. And I mean, another thing, if you want to even go even further, because we're talking about Halloween, there's serial killers that also tied into all this pedocracy too, as well. That
Oh,
may have
of
been.
course there are. Why wouldn't there be? Right?
Yeah,
Why wouldn't
yeah.
there be?
John Wayne Gacy and David Berkowitz. They all tied in too, supposedly by Trump's mentor Roy Cohn. They called them the Sons of Cohn, and Cohn was running his own brownstone operation too, as well. And all the serial killers all tied into all of this too. That's the whole operation. That's all All it was is serial killers, child trafficking, drugs, blackmail, everything you could think of that sounds like science fiction, but there's plenty of documentation. I'm going to read the Franklin Scandal by John DeCamp, former Nebraska Republican state senator. I mean, there's enough people that went on record. I mean, Garrett Caradori, they assassinated Garrett Caradori, Jim, when he had the evidence that George H.W. Bush and Reagan were involved, and he had the pictures, the blackmail pictures from Rusty Nelson. He was traveling back in Chicago from a plane with his son, and they took down that plane and murdered Garrett Caradori. He was an American hero. He's an investigator.
So this is
Um,
like an old-fashioned barbelling.
yes, yes, and they've done it many times. Danny Casolaro, the Octopus, the
So I mean, is
Wislovsky.
this just? It almost feels like, going on the premise all of this is true. It would feel like this is intelligence agencies of almost every nation finding a formula that works and just kind of running amok with it. It almost seems like, if this is a problem in America, it's probably something that's happening in Russia then, and in China and the European Union, and probably in South America. It's probably happening everywhere. You've got all
Yes.
these intelligence communities that are like, hey, did you know that we're able to blackmail our politicians with kid sex? Oh, well, shit, let me join in. Let me do that in my home country.
Or is Epstein a Mossad operation? I mean, was Epstein Israel's operation,
Or
or was it Russians'
there's
operation? I mean, yeah, I agree. There's countries all over the world running, like I mentioned, the Mark Duterte affair in European Union, down there in Switzerland. So they're all running. They're all running similar stuff. Jimmy Savile in England, and it's all interconnected, or globally. Sadly, it gets as dark as that and as spooky as that. I mean, and messed up as that. It's
how
that bad.
many? Okay, so kind of going back, I guess, to the finders, or even any of these cases. How many of the children that were involved, that were kids at the time, have tried to speak out publicly about this? And I guess what happened when they tried to do that, if they did?
Ta- well, the Tallahassee Police Department people were told to shut it down. Ramon J. Martinez allegedly was investigated by Internal Affairs and forced out of the Customs Service and has been harassed his whole life. Gary Caradori was murdered in a plane crash. Danny Casolaro was suicided in his hotel room. Gary Webb was suicided or driven to suicide. Ray Lemmy. I mean, there's been multiple investigators and people who have been killed by the world order or by individual governments, whatever you want to say, that try to bring this information to truth. Um,
So how do you see it when you're looking at, I guess, this FBI release, then this vault release? Uh, do you see it as a positive thing? Do you think it's just something they released on a Friday because they thought nobody would pay attention? Do you think is it some kind of a signal change to the public, like, hey, maybe we're going to start bringing this stuff out into the light? What do you view it as?
I view it, if you look at the documents, it says it was a time disclosure because it's been about, give or take, since the 90s, a little bit over. A little bit over 20 years or something, 25 years since the initial case, since the second part of the case had been opened up. So if you look at the document, some of it says it's time release. It's just time to be released. It's just automatic. They've already redacted it and it's
Well,
time
yeah,
to
but I
go
mean,
forward.
to be fair, I mean, so was the JFK stuff, but that got
Correct.
sealed up again. You know what I mean? Not all of it was
Yeah.
really. So again, kind of looking at it, if you got all these multiple investigators or people that were connected to the case that are conveniently committing suicide, and now you have this information kind of coming to light. Could it be something where maybe the key players that were involved in the initial founding of it or in the initial operations of it in the intelligence community, maybe they've passed along, and so now nobody can be held accountable, and that's why it's getting outed?
No, I mean Gina Haspel's head of the CIA, and she's as evil as they come. So my thing I can think of is just time disclosure. I mean, some people say the world order has to disclose certain things before, all the predictive programming around 9/11. So I maybe they have to disclose, or maybe just because they think, who really knows about the finders. I mean, did you see, like you mentioned this on Twitter? No one's bringing this up in the mainstream media. No one. It doesn't exist. This could be. I mean, other than people like you, Jim, and thank God you brought it to light and everything. No one's really looking at this. It's like pissing in the wind, brother. I mean, it's just just like Epstein. People forgot about Epstein who. And then of course, that report comes out by the guy who also did JFK's autopsy and other famous autopsies, and he was hired by Epstein. And I do believe that Epstein either was murdered or was taken out by a Mossad hit team out of the prison, is living on a beach somewhere. I don't know, but I think that there are white hats that are releasing this stuff, maybe, but it's probably more that it's just timed. And again, it could be interdepartmental wars, because when you look at the documents, it never really talks about the FBI covering up, or the FCI, which is the foreign counterintelligence part of the FBI, because we're all taught, well, the FBI works on domestic soil and the CIA works on foreign soil. That's bullcrap. The FBI has a foreign soil part of it too, and they who cover it up. And the thing is, a lot of that stuff's redacted, unless there's not, people like me or you or Derek Bros or George who are really looking into these documents, really analyzing them. Your average person is not going to know what they're talking about. So I don't think why they did it. I don't know, but I can tell you that I don't think it's to muddy the waters. I think what they release is mostly accurate, but it's just difficult. Like I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Well,
I don't think it's for us.
well,
I just don't know.
I mean, I've heard the speculation before that people that commit atrocious act, that evil wants to be public. I guess is the best way to put it.
Yes.
Do you think this is the sort of thing where they just want to rub it in the public's face and like
Yep.
you're not going to do shit about it?
Yep. Either that or they want, they're just, yeah, I mean, that's probably it. Or since say, hey, now it's public, it's up to you to find us out. Our hands are washed of our sins. You know, it's either one of those. I don't, that sounds the best to me. I've heard both. That's about the best I can come up with. I wish I had a better answer.
That's fine. And so relating back to this FBI drop of 300 and I think it's 40 pages or 320, whatever it was, um, we got up to 180. I mean, I know there's 120 left. I think that's mostly going over police reports. Was there anything like when you were reading through it? Were there any things that really struck out to you? Or was there something you were reading and you're like, holy shit?
I never thought I'd read. I mean, pretty much the Metropolitan Police Department documents. The kids in cages. That had witnesses to kids in cages, which was in the Virginia State Police documents. Which someone did an FOA request for those documents, and Virginia State Police came back and they were like, "Oh, we don't have those documents. We don't know what happened to them. They disappeared. Jim, they're gone. They're gone. They're magically gone."
A lot of really convenient losses of evidence and documentation. I know that one of the witnesses, when they were interviewing him, I can't remember which finder's location it was, but it was in '87. Had said that they heard or saw children in vans crying being driven up to one of the complexes. So
Yes.
it's just so weird to me with that kind of evidence. It must be frustrating for local law enforcement, whether it's in Virginia, it's the Metro guys, it's Tallahassee, whatever, that they're looking into this, and I'm sure they know it's dirty as all high hell, but they can't do anything with it.
Very, very much so. Even the attorney that was trying to prosecute the finders down there in Florida, they drug him through the mud even back in the '80s, in '87, and saying that the only reason why he's going against the Christians is because or going against the finders is because he's a Christian with a Bible in his hand and a gun on his hip, and he doesn't understand their alternative lifestyle, Jim. He thought the finders were guilty and did his best he possibly could to separate the children and keep them separated from their parents, but he failed because again the FBI and the CIA stepped in and said shut it down, and so like they did good work, and the local Tallahassee Police Department, most people did. I do think possibly that one of the officers, Rick Huffman, he kind of like he said some weird things too, like when he was talking about sexual molestation. Well, it depends, Jim, if the girl has semen in her vagina or on her foot and the amount, and it's like shouldn't semen not be.
It depends on the amount of semen, does it?
Yes, or where it is. It shouldn't semen not be around children at all.
Hey guys, open the cell up, all right? He only came on her feet. We need to let this guy go. He's a good guy. Let him go.
It's crazy, man. So I mean, and I've contacted both John Sullivan, who went on record. He was Ramon J. Martinez's boss, who said Ramon J. Martinez, always told him the truth and was always credible, and he believed him and stood by his report. I talked with Skip Clemens, who investigated it, and he said that the customs and the FBI shut down everything. I mean, there's enough evidence to show that the boys stepped in and said that's enough, shut it down. So there's enough evidence. The report I gave you that was unredacted. There's enough to show that they shut it down. Now, why they shut it down, I believe is because they were running, child trafficking and ops and stuff that glow in the darks do. So that's why they shut it down. And even when they reopened it, Charles Rose, my congressman from Fayetteville, North Carolina, there's some weird things about him. He was part of a rat gate and was working on psychic spies and stuff and everything. So it's but Tom Lewis, I think, was a good man. He was a congressman for Florida who was actually replaced. He was forced out right after this investigation opened back up. And he was replaced by Mark Foley. And Mark Foley would later go down for the Republican Page scandal. So it never ends, And with the finders, we didn't even get to talk about how recently in the past year there was a finder member named Theodore G. Reese who was part of the inner circle. He was like a computer programmer. He worked with the Future Enterprises, supposedly the CIA front that the finders were training CIA agents with. That the documents talk about. He was arrested at the ripe age, and I think it was 80. He was in his 80s. I think he was 80, with distributing child pornography. So that's a modern connection to the finders, and he was in the inner circle. Theodore West was G. West.
Okay, well, speaking of the current age, right? Today, this Halloween, how big are the finders currently? How many members would you speculate are out there? Is this still a big thing that's been kept under wraps, or is this something that once the '87 coverage and '93 coverage happened, that they started to try to wind down?
No, they're still going to my knowledge. For example, there was the Futurist magazine, which is run by the World Future Society and has had famous people like Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Buckminster Fuller, which was a petty started front, was a finder started front. They started this World Future Society. The former architect, Roy Mason, who was a homosexual, had a tranny back in the 70s that burned down his house, one of his houses that he owned. Who Charles Soka said he loved allegedly had a predilection for young boys as well. He also was a big part of the World Future Society, and they're writing a magazine called The Futurist. And there's a finder named Kristen Knopf, who was actually one of the mothers of one of the children, Benjamin Knopf. She changed her name to Kristen Noth. She dropped the K. And she's still writing for The Futurist, which was magazine, which was part of the World Future Society. And there was a guy on there, and I have to look at his name. Excuse me for not remembering his name. It had the 4chan people, and thank God for the nonsense of 4chan, because they even showed a few things that I didn't know, and I've been investigating this for three years, Jim. There was a guy on there who, before the FBI documents dropped, he worked for the magazine Futurist with Kristen Noth. In his Twitter profile, he put Finder, but as soon as this stuff dropped, he took Finder off in the past week or so.
Oh yeah, no, I could imagine. I guess one thing that kind of sticks out to me, I know Epstein was big on having parties and inviting people to his island. I know he liked having a lot of the technological elite there, a lot of the current age thinkers. It seems like the Finders kind of did the same thing. And kind of looking back on this with the Satanic Panic and just kind of the modus operandi of this, and just is this some kind of a weird secondary like attack on Christianity?
Yes.
Because it feels
Uh,
like there's a really heavy secular angle, and it feels like there's a real heavy kind of futurist humanist angle,
yes.
to kind of try to I don't know, to rip out the soul of America almost.
I mean, I remember, kids back in the '80s. My grandparents wouldn't let my father. My mother passed away when I was young, but wouldn't let my father place me in daycare because of the whole Satanic Panic. Like they believed it was a real thing. So I put Satanic Panic in quotation marks. But afterwards, think about it. Like how many parents didn't think twice because if you don't put your kid in daycare anymore, that's silly Satanic Panic nonsense, Jim. It's okay to put your kids in daycare or Montessori schools or anything like that. It's perfectly fine, So that whole narrative could just, Satanic Panic narrative completely destroyed it. And some people say it's actually the beginning of helicopter parenting because parents started thinking that something was wrong, but they really couldn't look at it because they'd be told Satanic Panic, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, it feels similar almost to the push that's going on right now. I mean, I'm kind of jumping subjects a little bit, but in kind of influencing the next generations that are coming up. I mean, it feels like the concept of morality or religious values have kind of been eroded, and
Yes.
it almost seems. I mean, you can kind of see that a continuation of that nowadays, where you've got 10-year-olds saying, "Oh well, I'm trans." There's one 10-year-old. I'm transsexual. I'm going to open a dating service. Very secular mindset. Um, I guess what would the if that was the angle, right? If the angle was to kind of tear away that aspect of America, why? I'm trying to think of what the end goal of something like that would
Just to
be.
demoralize us and push us further from not trusting each other, not trusting our communities, and pulling us furthest away from church. I mean, it's pretty much what it did in trust government institutions, like your schools. I know daycares aren't really, government institutions, but they do get funding from government a lot. And also, DSS too, I mean, or CPS, should I say. And there are good CPS people out there, don't get me wrong, but, CPS has been implicated in a lot of these scandals too as well. Um, I guess, I guess the only thing I think of is just to so they can operate more. Because if anybody questions it, oh, it's just crazy Christians with their satanic panic, you know,
Right, and kind of
and to demoralize us.
shut them out of the public discourse when they have something to
Yes,
say.
yes,
Yeah, I suppose you could assemble a timeline that might be interesting to look at, starting maybe in the late '70s to early '80s, and just kind of the shift that might have taken place in America from you had there's been so many things, War on Christmas, Satanic Panic. You've got kind of this sexually liberated mindset where
Yep.
everything is permissible and nothing is weird anymore. If your 5-year-old wants to be transsexual, if your 10-year-old wants to be gay and dance for money, this is all okay. Let's have drag queen story hour. And it just seems like, if you presented any of these things, any of these things that have happened maybe over the last 30 years in the 1940s or 50s or hell, even in the 60s, society as a whole would have been like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, that's during this whole thing. It was. I mean, look at what you want. People could say about Russia as far as Trump is concerned. Trump, tweeting it's a witch hunt or anything. But one of the things I found very interesting is Michael Savage writes a book on witch hunts, and he puts McMartin on there, but he just gives like the list first article as links to it, but not reading like anything substantial about it, and says that, well, this is the reason why they're going after Trump is because satanic panic. And you see a lot of similar, you know, Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, Sebastian Gorka. Sebastian Gorka said satanic panic too is similar to the witch hunt against Trump is similar to satanic panic. They all, there's been quite a few people in Coulter. So it's just interesting of how they brought it back forth again just to beat people. I mean, people were literally tweeting. I mean, like Styx Hexenhammer. Styx is a Satanist, and people tweeting back to him. Styx. Well, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's something to this, Scott Adams. But
Yeah,
it's
no,
just
I've seen Stick's take on this. I know that he said, or at least I believe he said, I know he did a video, I didn't get a chance to watch it, but he had said something along the lines of, well, this isn't real Satanism. This isn't like, the down home, good cooking, love you at Christmas kind of Satanism I'm used to. I think that was his take on it.
seems about right. Michael Aquino and every the West Point. I mean the Presidio cover up and everything with Satanism involved in that too. Nah, no, I have to worry about that, Jim. It's nothing to see here. It's just that LaVey Satanism, that true atheist that masquerades as a Satanist and only care about themselves. That's true Satanism. Don't worry about all these child sacrifices or sexual abuses. No, don't worry about that. That's a satanic panic.
Right, and
You
I mean,
know,
and I should say too. I mean, you're talking to somebody. I'm not super religious. I mean, I went to church as a kid, but I kind of fell out of it. But even just, I guess, from my perspective of somebody that's not really tuned into religion, it is weird. There is a lot of really weird shit going on here. To have this kind of common theme repeatedly pop up with the pentagrams and the animal sacrifices and all the weird the what was it the fucking spirit cooking. In fact,
yeah,
I think I have a. Do I have a picture of that queued up? Just to give people an idea if they're unfamiliar with what the hell I'm talking about. Um,
with Abramovic.
yeah, there we go. I should have one up on screen now for people. But it's just it's a lot of weird shit. You know what I mean? And I think even irreligious people or like atheists, just secular people looking at this might be like, yeah, that is kind of fucking strange.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and how often it's not just one occurrence. If it's one occurrence, you kind of blush it off. But when it brush it off when it's happened in almost every single of these cases, like how many times? How many times is it a pattern? That before eventually you're like, oh, okay, this is truly a thing. And so, I mean, the government's involved, Satanism angle. It sounds like a Hollywood movie, like you say, and like something you'd watch on Halloween, right? Well, it's not. It's really going on, and it's happened in multiple cases, and it's still sadly going on today in areas that things we can even think of.
Yeah, it's just so strange. I mean, the only other thing I could think of potentially as to why this is a common theme, maybe it was we'll take something. I mean, okay, so let's say you're the CIA and you're running some weird kind of blackmail child sex cult, and you have to plan for contingencies. What are we going to do if the public ever finds out about this? The child porn stuff's really going to sink us. I know. Let's throw the Satanism on top to try to distract them with that. I mean, do you think there's a potential that might be why this is something that's reoccurring all over the place?
I'd say probably a small potential. I think, I mean, as a Christian, I'm going to say, yeah, it's Satanism. But if I'm trying to looking at it from a different angle, it's possible. However, there were members of the Finders that were followers of Aleister Crowley and other members that were supposedly Satanists, like Stuart Miles Silverstone. He was very much into Aleister Crowley, and Toby Troll talks a lot about it in the Game Caller. And then why would the Finders have all of these, altars, one being in the warehouse, one being near the W Street apartments, and one being at the Free State. Why would they have all those? And what Goat Gate? Why Goat Gate? Why the slaughtering of the goat and ritual poses and pictures and everything? Like, why that? They now Toby Terrell says, well, they were just harvesting the goat for food. And it was animal husbandry, and I don't believe that at all. And when you actually read Toby Terrell's book and he tries to explain the way they repaired a gym, the kids were stuck out in this Free State area. There was land that Petty owned with cabins and stuff like that, and like tents and stuff. And they were in their own cabin by themselves, and the adults would just watch them, and the kids just did whatever they wanted to do. It's like whatever they wanted to do. Like the adults would just watch them, and if like maybe they claim if one of the kids were going to get harmed, they would step in. But the kids were pretty much like lived in like a cabin with no adult supervision except for like the finders members looking in on them from the windows. They claim all the time, but my guesses would be never. And there's also talk about the kids being kept in cages, and I mean, it's like the worst of free range parroting, hippie parroting that you can ever think of. So at the bare minimum, these finders' children were, abused. They didn't have any normal structure. I mean, during Christmas, Jordan Arico talks about the finders' women came down the stairs naked, and the kids just thought it was a funny game. That they were all naked and kissing the finders' men.
Yeah, it feels like from I guess if I had to give a hot take, even going back to the story you were telling about, I can't remember his name now, but the guy at McMartin that would read the Playboys with the kids on his
Raymond
lap.
Bucky. Raymond
Right,
Bucky.
right. When you're looking at that, or when you're looking at these stories about the moms walking around naked, when all the goat shit going on, it seems like almost a progressive, not progressive here as in like political leanings, but like progressive as in it keeps growing. Program of trying to normalize deviant behavior. Trying to make it acceptable to the kids. Like, hey, shit's getting weird, but we're doing it slowly enough that you're gonna think this is normal by the end of it.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And that's what even the Metropolitan Police Department said. They were like, well, we don't think the kids were, molested, but they were brainwashed. And the Finders kids today, they still exist. At least we think they do in social media. Like it does appear to be them. And of course, anybody listening, don't go harass them or anything like that, because when that happens, people start pulling down stuff off of social media and everything. But
Well, I figure they're mind fucked enough. I wouldn't want to bother them. You know what I mean? After all
no,
this
no, no.
shit.
I'm not saying you, Jim. I'm just saying
Oh no,
anybody.
no, no. I'm agreeing with you. Like if I went through this kind of shit, yeah, I'd probably be pretty fucked up after it.
But some people say, well, if they're still with their parents, then nothing happened, right? Well, they could have been brainwashed severely. That happens in many types of abuse. Stockholm syndrome. It doesn't mean just because they're still with their families now or still have relationships with their families that nothing happened, even to them, Because some people argue, well, the sexual evidence of molestation was possibly weak with the finders, the six children themselves. And there may be a possibility that and I believe that it was likely, and there's other investigators believe likely, there were things going on with those children. Okay, that were more than just not being properly cared for.
Well, that's my gut hunch.
Um,
Just based on the Tallahassee report, that's my gut feeling on it.
But basically, if we go off of that and just say, there were many, many children at the Free State. Eyewitnesses saw children, hundreds or thousands over the period of 20 years, And then you had the connection with Hunter Patch Adams, the movie that Robin Williams played Patch Adams on, the Guns Untied Institute being funded by Marion Petty, and Hunter Adams being very good friends with Petty,
Oh wait,
so
I didn't even make that connection. Wait, are you telling me you're telling me that one of those quirky comedies that Hollywood produces has a fucking connection to a child sex cult the CIA ran?
yes. Do you want to hear what you might find this very interesting? Let me find it. Do you want to hear exactly what Hunter Adams said about Goatgate, about them slaughtering the goats?
Now this is the person the character Patch Adams in the movie is
Yes.
based on, right? The one Robin
Yes.
Williams played. Okay, what did he say?
Yes. He said, and I quote, What other evidence have they uncovered? Ritual bloodletting of the goat slaughter, he added. On the farm, it's called harvest. It's animal husbandry, a practice 13,000 years old. Farmers traditionally include their children, particularly their male children, in annual fall butchering of livestock. I've met city people who think their milk comes from a carton. Urbanites are often ignorant at the realities of food production. Their ways of child rearing aren't mine. Yes, they're strange. Yes, they're misguided. But there are a lot of other kinds of neglect out there. If their children have been neglected, it wasn't meant to be neglect. They mean to give their children enriching experiences. This could be a lesson of survival. If you want to show her how society is messed up, this will certainly do it.
That is, I'm trying to get over the fact that see, I didn't make the connection when he kept saying, what the Patch Adams stuff, the Gesundheit Institute. Um, I guess speaking of the relationships and kind of the structure of this thing, I think kind of going back again to the FBI report. What can you tell us about? Because everybody refers to the game changer. Now, I mean, is this just a singular title he took on as himself, or do you think this is like a position within the organization that passes between people? Once he's gone, is there never going to be another game? I'm sorry, the game. What is it?
Game caller.
Game.
Game
Yeah,
caller.
Jesus. Yeah, game caller. So is that like his thing and his thing alone, or is this like a title that's passed along?
Well, Marion Petty was first called the Stroller. Okay, that's what he was originally called because he
Because
would just.
that's what he was stealing the children from, baby strollers.
No, I mean it was because he would just stroll around and just see what's up and what he could hear, what he could listen to, and what he could find out because he was a finder. And eventually, they started calling the game caller, supposedly because he would tell members of the finders what to do on a daily basis, so they would call them games. But the thing is the title of game caller. Now, Marion Petty was always the head, but other members of the finders sometimes he'd be like, "Okay, so Barbara Sylvester, it's your turn to call a game." Okay, so that person would become the game caller. All right, so it would morph. So you're right in that it was more of a title. Marion Petty was the head, and they'd have to answer to him, but the game caller would be a position that would change within the inner circle.
Well, you know what I'm struck by too, just in the conversation we've had over the past hour, talking about the FBI stuff. I mean, I know we have speculation. We're going off on our own theories on what this might mean, or some of the things that might be going on. But I mean, there is kind of a dark brilliance to it. Um, because if I were to tune into this stream and listen to this without knowing anything, I'd be like, this is fucking crazy. Um, it feels like it was set up to be like that.
Yes.
You have two people talking about this, and even though you've got FBI reports and police reports that talk about the evidence they found, that talk about, tunnel networks, that talk about books on mind control, keeping kids in cages, sexual and physical abuse, the titles they used, just all the weird stuff that's going on, the connection to the intelligence community, even with all of that, um, when you kind of put it together and then you present it to a normal person, they're like, no, this is fucking crazy. This sounds like Hollywood shit to me. This sounds like something that's so unbelievable it couldn't be real. And it feels like that was created intentionally to be a buffer to prevent the public from ever looking at it and being like, oh my god, this is really happening.
Or I mean, what about Gamergate? Remember the former porn actress Mercedes Carrera?
Yeah, now she got arrested, and her was it her husband or the step? I know she got nailed for child porn charges. She was doing all sorts of fucking crazy deviant shit with her kid.
Yes, and if you go look at her Instagram and stuff like that, she has Baphomet and all this satanic imagery that they were putting in and everything too as well.
Yeah, I think it was described as she was doing like some kind of BDSM abuse of her daughter, and there were multiple film.
Allegedly, yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah,
Allegedly, yeah.
allegedly, yeah. Let me join you on the allegedly. This is what I've heard. None of this is my. I'm not definitively stating any of this. Just the reports and articles I've heard. But it was some pretty hardcore stuff allegedly, and a lot of videos allegedly of this kind of happening. But yeah, I was that kind of blew me away when that came to light because I mean her daughter is I think like 8 years. This is a little kid.
Yes, yes. Gamers rise up
Yeah, well,
and do something about this.
maybe that particular gamer should have sat the fuck down instead of doing what she was doing. Because, and then
Yeah,
she has connections to the porn industry, and who knows how far that shit went.
yeah. Again, that was just another satanic. The imagery that just brought, that I just thought of, and it. I mean, if someone looking in, they'll be like, "Well, this stuff's crazy," and the same thing they'd say about the Franklin scandal or anything else. But when you actually do the research, like I did, I had a really good friend who believed in conspiracies, but he actually didn't believe me about the Pettygate stuff until he actually sat down. He was a former CPS worker. He actually sat down and read the Franklin scandal. And once he read that, he goes, "John, you're 100% right, 100% sorry." Because the CPS reports in the Franklin scandal, he was like, "There's no way these children were lying."
Well, I mean, when you see some of the stuff that's been exposed that the government's done, and just the kind of professions that have been involved in it, if you were told it, you'd say, "Oh, that's crazy," but then it comes to light. I think one of the more clear examples would be the whole thing with the Tuskegee people that basically they wanted to run a health experiment on a group
Yes.
of people. They all have syphilis. We're not going to tell them. We're just going to test them because we want to see what happens to their brain. But you had people in intelligence, in the military. You had doctors who take a sworn oath not to do something like that involved in it. They tried doing it just outside the borders so they wouldn't get harassed doing it. And that was something that Clinton ended up during his presidency having to address and apologize for. But if you were to tell somebody, hey, the government's knowingly letting people get infected with an STD to drive them crazy just to see what happens, people would be like, no, that's not possible. And yet you see that, yeah, no, that was really something they were a part of.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the U.S. Navy got caught spraying Serratio marsens, which is, like, you ever seen that pink slime, like in like the bottom of your drain in your shower?
Well,
Well, they were
where I'm from, they make that into chicken McNuggets.
yes, but they sprayed that stuff on San Francisco unreally, but during the 1950s, it was called Operation Sea Spray, just to see what would happen.
I'll tell you
And
what happened.
see,
Well, see, now we have an explanation. Chat, you should thank him. Because now we know why the fuck California is the way it is. It's the goddamn Navy's fault.
yeah, they sprayed them with bacteria. Actually, quite a few people actually end up dying from pneumonia. Elderly people from being sprayed with that bacteria. So I mean, what about MK Ultra, MK Often? Like how many times do they run ops even on us before eventually people wake up and realize that this stuff's going on?
Yeah, it's insane. Well, I appreciate you coming on to talk about this. I mean, you had a lot more background and insight than I did. Obviously, I'm just kind of casually reading over it, but you've definitely, talked to people and research stuff. If people want to follow this, if they want to follow the stuff that you're looking into, or this, the book that you're working on, or just any of the stuff that you're doing related to this, where would they follow you?
We've read the documents on YouTube. We've read on Twitter. And I definitely want to thank you for having me on, Jim. I've been following you since the Internet Aristocrat days. It's been so long ago now. And all the work that you've done to do, I mean, whether it's Kurt Eichenwald, and oh God, don't even get me started on Eichenwald, or Nick Bates, or Ross, or anything like that. You do try to bring this stuff to light, and of course the finders may be a little bit more on the grand scheme of things as far as being, in a larger circle, but you're doing the Lord's work, Jim. You're doing the
Well,
Lord's work.
no, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on to talk about this and kind of share your insight. Um, I mean, yeah, it just kind of leaves me a bit dumbstruck, I guess, at the end of it, after kind of reading through the reports, talking to you, looking at the related stuff, uh, that even if all the speculation we've made is completely not true, just the stuff that is factually known, that is written down in black and white on documents from police stations, in multiple places, from the FBI, from Customs, from these different organizations. Just that alone should leave a sick feeling in people's stomach.
Very much so, Jim. Take care.
All right, you have a good one. Thanks for
You
joining
too.
me. Bye.
Bye.
All right, chat. Well, we've definitely gone into the rabbit hole. I will tell you that much. We've definitely face first down the fucking thing. Happy Halloween. Oh boy. Are you feeling safe about your kids out there now? And some weird fucking group called the Finders is going to abduct them and then make them cut off goat heads, end up on Epstein's Island, maybe buried under a preschool in tunnels screaming at the top of their fucking lungs. This entire data dump from the FBI has just been surreal. Reading the police reports, I'm just going to touch on what I said earlier. I feel bad for the police departments that have to deal with this shit. Because when you read those police reports, it's pretty apparent that the cops that are working it, they're just the normal fucking cops that get saddled with it, find it reprehensible. They find it disgusting. And why wouldn't they? They're having the same visceral reaction you would if you came across it. They want to get to the bottom of it. They want to make sure this weird shit's not really happening. and yet to be stopped at every avenue, to have your warrants squashed, to have your evidence lost, to be told you can't pursue this, it must be just soul crushing. It must be absolutely soul crushing because you're the one seeing those kids. You're the one investigating that shit. And you probably know deep down that there's some messed up shit happening. And yet somebody from a higher organization with more authority than you is going to put a stop to it. So I feel real bad for the Metro guys, for the Tallahassee guys, for Virginia, just for all the different police departments that got involved in this and just weren't able to I guess bring it to justice. I can't I don't know. You know, reading through this stuff and speculating on what it might mean and the connections it might have, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't know why this would be allowed to persist. I don't know why this sort of just reprehensible stuff would be given the okay. You'd think somebody would have a crisis of conscience at a intelligence community or whoever would be organizing this and say, God, I'm an awful human being for letting this happen on my watch. But apparently not. Apparently we're in the minority when you think like that. But if you want to talk about what monsters are, you've heard an hour and a half discussing real monsters. The kind of people that would use children to gather intelligence or to fight a foreign nation or to control a politician. The sort of people that would prevent police departments from protecting people. Then that's a monster. That would use children as pawns in some kind of international scheme. That's a monster. That's what Halloween's about. These monsters glow in the dark, but they seem to be very much real. Where this will go, you know, that's the pessimist in me. I think we're all pretty much pessimistic when we're looking at something like this. And it'll go where Epstein went. It'll go where this always goes. It will disappear from people's minds. They'll talk about it for a few weeks, and then they'll forget about it. Now, you know, maybe they want to, on some subconscious level, forget about it because then they don't have to deal with it. But it's just the age we live in. Everything's instant consumption. You've got to get that 5 minutes of entertainment and then you move the fuck on to the next thing. I mean, I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. I'm not casting judgment on people and saying I'm above it. But it does make me a bit sad that that is the reality of things. Epstein was murdered in his jail cell, and it's already just kind of being forgotten. If that story hadn't broken, it wouldn't have gone nowhere. And now, here we are. Hearing about the finders and reading about it, and in a month's time, you ask somebody, hey, what do you think of the finders? They're not going to know anything about it. Well, I'm sorry, Chad, if that's depressing to you. Again, it is Halloween, and some of the best horror stories, some of the best terror that exists are the ones that don't have a happy ending, are the stories that end in a bleak, despairing hole, a void, empty of any hope or any light. Those are the real stories that are filled with terror. And that is the story I've shared with you this Halloween. So if you got kids, give them a hug. If you got a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband or a wife, give them a hug. And thank God, or your spirit animal, or whatever the fuck you believe in, that at least you didn't get roped into this shit. That at least you were able to grow up normally and you weren't put on some fucking CIA farm to be a child prostitute for some weird fucking people. I guess thank God for small miracles like that. All right. Now that I've made you despair, we will. I'll jump into the super chats. I'll read through them all. Sorry if I, didn't get a chance to read any of them during the little interview there. But I just, it was a good conversation. I just wanted to keep it going. Figured it was better not to interrupt. So if you had any particular questions, I'm sorry if I missed them. Hopefully, the questions I asked were good enough for you guys. So let me see where I left this off, and we will continue on. One moment. You know what, actually, chat, what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a drink, because I've got to read through these. That's my excuse for needing a drink, is, I got to read these super chats. I just need a drink from the subject itself. I'm going to be fucking honest with you. I just need a drink to center myself a little bit. So I'll put on a little music here. We'll take a small break. Go take a piss. Do whatever you got to do. And then I'll come back and I'll read the super chats. Everybody else, if you don't want to stick around for that's fine. I hope you have a good Halloween. I hope you have a great weekend coming up. For everybody else, just give me like 3 minutes here. Let's do smooth jazz. You know, smooth jazz, I think, is the right way to go for this fucking subject matter. I feel pretty confident going with smooth jazz for our break music. So let me put this on, and I will be back in just a few minutes. Okay. Hopefully that helped a little bit. Hopefully that relaxed everybody a good bit. I saw a couple people in chat. What about the rest of the documents? I'll be honest with you. I was going to read over the last 120 pages, but I think that interview pretty much, I think that covered it. The remaining 120 pages went over the remainder of the police reports and a few telefaxes and things like that. But I was pretty pleased with that conversation. We got a lot of information related to kind of where this went, who was involved, and it got names of people, investigators, their fates. Kind of surprised that multiple people, quote unquote, committed suicide. Seems to be a common theme anytime something like this comes up. That what do you know? Everybody involved is suddenly dead. Everybody got Seth Riched. So, Jesus. All right, let me jump back in here. Sharkman 9K. Happy All Hallows Eve from a fellow potato. Please tell MM I hope she doesn't burn along with California. Okay. From Double A, Happy Halloween, Jimbo. Hope everyone has a good Halloween, but want to know what's scarier? Despite being 13% of the population. And then it went dot, dot, dot. I don't know where that one was going. I'm going to have to just put on my thinking cap to see where that might end up. From Me Here, You There. I'm driving down my road and I just seen a bunch of glow-in-the-dark children. Help me, Terry. What should I do? You need to run, especially if they have black eyes, because then you're combining two different things. You're combining G and X, and that's dangerous. From NA, Skeletons Rise Up. Just a coder. Look at all Reddit figs spamming door. From Joseph Jimenez, what are you dressed up for as Halloween this year? I went out as Tape Man. I'm still getting hammered. Might have to drop some red pills later. There's nothing like getting super drunk and then saying things you're going to regret in the morning. Have a little Red Pills Tourette's episode in the middle of your Halloween party. Start talking about the USS Liberty. Everybody's like, oh, shit. From Rude Boy Club, like Rapid Fire on Facebook.com, based. Smug Leaf the Snivy. Mr. Metokur, what's your opinion of Shadman? Also, how are you tonight? Lots of keks from across the pond in Wales. Smug Leaf the Snivy. Shadman, I do not consume that art. That's what you're asking me. Every time Shadman gets brought up on V, you've got about 300 fucking images that go up of people sliding out a door, backing out of the thread. It's like clockwork. Also, how am I tonight? Well, I was doing pretty good until we got into this shit. I was doing fairly okay until we got into the dark underbelly of the CIA. From Joni Baloney, Styx has a Mexican wife. He is blooped on Texas. Oh, blue-pilled on Texas. Well, blooped would have been more interesting because I wouldn't know what the fuck that was. Rod Howard, top of the morning to you, Mr. O'Shaughnessy. I see you drank a little too much of your potato whiskey again. Typical late Patty. Beck's Fire, Happy Halloween, Sweetie Squad. From Autism Forums, dogs only lick you for bones inside you, Jimbo. Wake up. From Trolita, roses are red, violets are blue. My poem is epic, pee pee poo poo. Double A, Echo Papa Sierra Tango Echo Indy. No, are you having me? Am I spelling something out that's going to get me arrested? Is this some? Oh, I'll read it. I'll read it if I'm giving away government positions. From Double A, Echo Papa Sierra Tango Echo India. November Delta India Delta November Oscar Tango Charlie. Oscar Mike Mike India Tango Sierra Uniform India Charlie India Delta Echo. From Ethereal, you guys, I'm really super spooked right now. From Victor Phantasm, Happy Halloween, boss. I'll sell you my $220,000 house and a nice white HOA, Homeowners Association, I'm guessing, if you hurry up and come here. 4 beds, 3 baths, 2,400 square feet, half an acre. Well, it sounds like a nice property, but I'm going to wait for the market to crash, and then I'm going to go get myself a mansion for $100K. From Danny G, Happy Halloween, doing the Lord's work, lulz. From Putty Tat, hey Jim, hope you're having a better Halloween than I am. Here's to another fun stream. Obviously, this one was sent before we got into the depressing shit. From Excellent Browning, this is my first and maybe even last Superberry for you, Jim. I live near Seattle, and let's hope 11-3 takes us all. Keep up the good work, mate. Oh, thank you. From the Hotness, on day 11 of 21-day day work week, your streams help me through working 70 hours a week. God damn. How long do you think before the planet hits World War III, or do you think that disarmament is more likely? Love you, Jim. Thanks for the stream. Here's 5 Smoky Dews. I don't know if World War III is going to hit us. The world is fucking crazy, though. You never know. From Cody Culp, Dr. Baden is the HBO autopsy guy legit. From Beck's Fire, the sorry state of the press when an anon shitposter does better investigative, informative journalism than the mainstream media. From Bad Nut, that Nigerian guy built a helicopter out of a BMX and sold it to the military. What have you done lately? Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm moving to Ghana because that is a money-making opportunity, and I'm not leaving cash on the table. From Texas Spirit, too, why does this CIA op sound like Sargoy levels of competence and ideas? We got to own those Soviets. From Grody Gungus, I'd better enjoy this while I can before you get suicided. From Victor Phantasm, by the way, boss, the house is in Texas. Would you debate Styx Scheckelheimer 666 about whether or not the satanic panic was truly satanic? Yeah, I would. That'd be actually a pretty entertaining conversation. From Lumberjack Cowboy, it's real graveyard hours. Who's working? Will Ross, spooky, scary CIA sends shivers down your spines. When the cops try to shut it down, we'll tell you they're all fine. We're so sorry, CIA, you're misunderstood. You only want to socialize, but I don't think you should. From Bad Nut, is the CIA necessary anymore? Well, I'd love to answer that question, but I'll probably have a barbell fall on my fucking head if I do. So I'm going to have to I'm going to have to table that one. I'm going to be honest with you here. Hold on, sorry, chat. Okay. That's the Nigerian one. There we go. From Page Fault, hey Jim, have you heard of the National Association of Zionists and Israelites Party? I heard they have really nice camps with plenty of bonfires. Well, no, I'm unfamiliar. I'll have to read some pamphlets. From Godzilla 37, I'm here because someone said Google dancing Israelis. Well, there you go. They are fine dancers from what I understand. Ben Thomas, daily reminder, Matt Jarbo is not the father. I think we all knew that just on a gut hunch. From Colton Butler, fighters, keepers, losers commit suicide weepers. You know, actually, now that I've got Jarbo in my head, you know what our outro song's going to be? I'm going to go find one of those mundane Matt raps. Shit, I can't remember the name of it, but I'll find it, I think. From Afro John, I think we all need to take a page out of Terry Davis' book. If they glow in the dark, shift out of park. From Conspiracy and Comics, Sweetie Squad checking in. Check my comment, Oi Solstice. Tales of Bardic Fury on Indiegogo. Husbandu and waifu bards in ancient Ireland. Hashtag scatter CIA to the wind. From Master Plagues, You're My Prayers, Jim. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween to you. From Zuko Yurkerhart, Hollywood Degenerate Stream. Check out the documentary Open Secret. From Conspiracy and Comics, You Want Waifus? Check out Solstice on Indiegogo, bro. From Bubby LaFleur, Dylan is a nig. Gertie Dinkland, well, at least this is not lemons. That is very true. Dahlia Spoonge, Rip Boogie 2988. Apparently Boogie's passed away, everybody. If we can get an F in chat for Boogie. Once again, he's passed away. That makes number 984. Man dies all the time. Oh, did somebody find the name of the song I'm looking for? Oh, MC Jarbo. Jarbo the Hutt. Okay. From Thickalo, Happy Halloween, making pizza deliveries and listening to the stream. Excited to have more reasons to hate the glow-in-the-darks. Gabrielle Montreal, what does Milo Yiannopoulos know about Pizzagate? Well, that's actually a really good question, Gabrielle. I may be I would hope more people would remember this, but I'm going to walk us all down memory lane. Milo Yiannopoulos, and this is, you can find the streams and the comments, I'm sure they're archived. Remember when he was going to do a big presentation on Pizzagate? He had everybody show up to an event, he was going to do it, and then he walked out of off stage for like 20 minutes and came back and said, I just received a call from Washington. I can't talk about this right now. Big things are happening. And then nothing ever came of that. I'd love to know what exactly was that call? What exactly happened there? Now, I'm pretty sure my old man memory isn't failing me, and that really did happen. And if you look into it, you'll find what I'm talking about. From Chemtrail Mix, Happy Halloween, Jimbo. Have you had a chance to look into missing 411 stuff? Truly spooky stuff. It convinced me to avoid all national parks. From Victor Phantasm Boss, what do you think about H3H3 buying a $9 million Edu mansion in Bel Air while begging for lawsuit donations 3 years ago? See Mamology 101's video for details. Yeah, I do remember him asking for donations for a lawsuit. If he's got $9 million to buy a fucking mansion, what was he asking for money for a fucking lawsuit for? From Brad Sigel, I love sluds, I love rarity, wah, rah, ooh la la. Gertie Dinkland, yep, too many edibles, lost the words. Slimo Jones, Juice, take the foreskin and slap a big tragic blood diamond on it to purpose. They're as shady as lampshade and grimier than a bar of soap. Lurgel, hey Jimco merch, make Jimco merch, you shifty-eyed heeb. Dove and Death, I'm doing great today, Jim. I was in a jury that found a black man guilty and is going to have to serve a minimum of 11 years. From Dr. Conman Kotick, Happy Halloween, Jim. I'm currently hiding from the glow-in-the-darks. Pray for me. From No Need Some Milk, hey Jimbo, happy Halloween. Love your streams and videos. It's my birthday, and 2 streams in one day is a great gift. Keep doing what you're doing. Well, happy birthday. From Jay Wanks, Terry Davis was right. I don't think train accident was really an accident. Maybe onto something. It is a fucking weird story on how he went out, and it sucks because Terry was a great guy. From Legato Madi, there's a greater evil in DC no one wants to talk about, Man Bear Pig. Farmaster Flex, Excelsior. From Dame Pesos, Ethan Ralph, it's me, Metokur. I love the gunt. Put it in my rear, queer. I love Israel and the Jews. I believe in the Holocaust. From KTTK, Ralph, I love your gunt. Lumberjack Cowboy, he's a good old boy from North Carolina like myself. From Mac 1134, the saddest part is the stuff that like this is still probably going on and more than likely we'll never know. From Felix Culpa, happy Halloween, Jimbo. Check out 12 Tribes from the FBI Vault on June 25th. It's only 66 pages, but also deals with a cult, only it's religious and not satanic. There's also part of it mentions Bernie Sanders. You know, maybe I'll do like FBI Vault streams. I don't know. I mean, the Finders thing was interesting. 12 Tribes from the FBI Vault, June 25th. You know what? I'll take a look at it. Mahola Viking, is this where I order a UFO abduction? No, that will be the David Stay stream I'm doing about aliens on November 15th. From the Mind Corporation, have you ran Temple OS on the Oracle VirtualBox? No, I have not. I am a filthy heathen. I'm not allowed to use God's operating system. From Joey Jojo Joe. I'm beginning to think demons are real and walk among us. Anyone who harms or abuses children like this deserve to be ripped and torn. Sick world. Black Cube Mystery. This glowy stream is redacted and redacted build. From Russ Daddy. Has anyone heard about the Jewish kids that got circumcised by a rabbi and started contracting AIDS after the rabbi sucked the blood off the pee-pee? I've heard stories like that, but if there's one currently in the news, I'm unfamiliar with it. At least that's what I'm going to say, so I don't get barbelt. Okay, well, I lost my. Oh, there we are. From Derp Mug Apwool Perry, Rip Boogie. Again, Rip Boogie, you will be missed. From Jim Westberg. Time to add a P to an alphabet soup identity group. Legato Madi. Holy jeez, I just realized. In Fallout New Vegas, Ted Gunderson is the name of the man who lost his son and who was kidnapped by the White Glove Society, who were the upper richest people in the apocalypse. Bethesda is based in D.C. From Super Roxapo. My hips are moving on their own, Oni-chan. Sunny69. Kevin Spacey accuser recently dies. Kevin Spacey case just closed and dismissed. Weird. Oh well. From Sordid Sentinel. The Satanism aspect is intended to further control and terrorize the kids. You make a kid cut off a goat's head during a ritual, and now they feel like they're a part of the abusers. Not just an innocent abused kid. A woo, Jim. A woo. From the Mind Corporation. Ascend out of the political compass. From Killing Munch. The fighters and the cabal practice Satanism because they follow Aleister Crowley and use his child sacrifice. Look for AC in Western cultures. He's venerated all over kosher media, e.g. Beatles album cover. From Legato Madi, White Glove in the game ritually ate people while living in the lap of luxury while the world burned. From Beck's Fire, what's the name of your guest channel? I want to let me grab that for you. Hold on one second. I should have it written down here. One sec here, guys. That was John, and it was We've Read the Documents. If you want to follow him, it should be We've Read the Documents on YouTube. And I think he said We've Read on Twitter. That one, I'm sorry, I can't remember that one specifically, but We've Read the Documents. Bubblegum Gun, the anime speed grapher, literally this with Bush. From Sexy Legs, only the slowest of pack get caught. I doubt they released it out of benevolence. It's probably a burn notice to maintain the illusion. From Mighty Pingus, I'm an Irish nibba. I grew up a provincial in Arkansas. I have no idea I have an idea I want to bounce off of you because you're a fellow potato and I like your style. Do you think there's a backwoods trafficking network in the USA? Backwoods trafficking as in what? You mean like child networking or I'm sorry, child trafficking or like drugs or just all of it? I wouldn't put it past intelligence agencies, whether they're trying to honeypot something or I guess trying to, what did he call it, brownstone people? There's probably something like that. From CAD Computers TV, I was sitting here eating bugs in like a good environmentalist when I heard you mention Michael Baden, the forensic pathologist. Did you know he had a series on HBO called Autopsy? It's great viewing. From Random Man, Jim, you should really check out the Detrux affair. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. It will blow your mind knowing how exposed they became, and still nothing changed. Yeah, that seems to be a common theory, or not a common theory. It seems to be a common thread, doesn't it? That when stuff like this comes out into the public, it never goes anywhere, even if it's just blatant and egregious and in your face and disgusting. It just kind of just disappears. From the Mighty Pingus, the Ozarks are quiet, man, and regular people who live here like to drink and watch TV. It could be done without people in the sticks noticing. From Ear Juice, please help find all of Cog's black children. There's quite a few to locate. From Kami Catcher 5000, if John is talking about Project Stargate about his rep, look into possible connections to known Satanist and Project Stargate head Michael Aquino. Got a message from Joanne. Well, no message, but just a donation. Thanks. From Rustna Hating, probably butchered that name too. Absolutely love your videos. This gives me lots of entertainment. Stay awesome and watch out for the glow-in-the-darks. From Victor Phantasm, boss, I'm a creationist Christian. I've had atheists tell me God doesn't exist, evolution is real, and men can be women. Suddenly, I believe they're dumb. From Ear Juice, Sticks groomed a teen and will flag videos with evidence along with cross-dressing. See Discord vid version. From Name, Epstein more like Easter bean. Scramble those eggs. Mr. Robert Parker, the most debased society, the most defenseless. The more debased the society, the more defenseless. From Star Asp, the greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing everyone he never existed. Filthy Casual, quick chat during break, or quit chat during break. Just wanted to pop in and hail Stan. Happy Spoopy Day. Well, happy Spoopy Day to you too. From the Turkish Zoo, the guy lost me when he said this was all to drive people away from the church when the church has the biggest collection of pedophiles in the world. Well, that is very true. There's been quite a few pedophile scandals in the Catholic Church. From Inix, you're doing God's work, Jim. Soon we will be calling you Pastor Jim. Also, watch out for anything glowing in the dark. Well, I am ready. I've got a flashlight on me. I'm protected. From Wild Burn, but Jimbo, it depends on the child. Victor Phantasm Boss, I love Patch Adams' movie from '98. Now I want to deliver a 9mm subsonic lead vitamin, and very suddenly. From Sweet Neat Child, does John have anything interesting to say about Dr. Alfred Kinsey or Dr. John Money? Now that would have been a great question to ask. From OJGSXR6, Josh is being groomed by the Sweetie Squad. From our Oh My God Huntard, bring back the Inquisition, Officia Assassinarium. From JD, FYI, Jim, the Hippocratic Oath is a myth. No doctor swears to do no harm. As far as they're concerned, they can take their education and go full Mengele. The Packard Goose, Frank Zappa album Thingfish covers the government testing stuff like AIDS and chemicals on large homosexual and minority populaces. Check it out. From Ollie Ulan, thanks for the content. Been enjoying it the way you tackle these bizarre subjects. Can't stand these other streamers always ranting and trying to sell me hats. I mean, am I right? You are correct, sir. I would never try to sell you a hat. A beautifully handcrafted hat with amazing high quality stitching for a bargain price that you could add a mug to and a t-shirt to and feel like you got a bargain. Sorry. Oh my God. I can already feel the cancer taking me, chat. From Turkish Zoo, Boogie was killed by the Finders. Rip. Tiberian Fiend, Christianity is attacked because it's seen by the small hats as being white culture. The replacement is real. From Penguin Mustache, your guest is open and admits to having a religious bias and is willing to look into info from a secular point, and yet you get people like DeGrasse Tyson who will slander and shove people down based on their beliefs. Good gravy. From Nightmare, hey Metokur from Australia, just tuned in after my nutrition exam. I'm a big fan of your internet insanity videos. Hope you're having a good one, mate. Well, I am. Back at you. From Dishwasher, it's okay, you can cry. Well, thank you for permission. From Metacor's Lunicorn Archives, nothing's too dirty for the spooks. Think of just about any atrocity you can possibly imagine, and they've done it hundreds, even thousands of times. From Fishman5678, on this Hallows Eve, I invite chat to say a special silent prayer for Terry Davis. The hell that he lived was a warning, and we did not listen. From 9/11 was the coolest thing ever. This whole glow-in-the-dark stuff is just like Halo, where John is abducted by the government, forced to be a child soldier, and goes through experiments. From the Knickerman, hey Jim, I just found out that the chick who I've been sleeping with is super liberal and is majoring in journalism. Should I be concerned, Jimbo? Well, you should be concerned she's going to write an article on you when she finds out you're a conservative. Oh, she's probably going to say, my boyfriend, the conservative, tricked me into having sex. Oh, you're done. You're done. You put a dress on and just pretend you're a woman. She'll leave you alone. From Lumberjack, they probably employ psychopaths and crazies specifically for these reprehensible actions because they don't have a conscience or have devils whispering in their ear already. From Mifa Supreme, hashtag Alex Jones was right. From Alec Majorson, so the communist computer god is real, isn't it? It seems like that. Spider-Cat, greetings, Jimothy. I just got my power back yesterday. Northern California is the best California. Screw PG&E and Comcast. Yeah, it's fucking crazy they cut your power off like they did. If I was a paying customer, I'd be furious. From Spud Nux, smooth jazz giving me some noir vibes. Investigator Jim needs some cool artwork. Keep up the great streams. And I think we are almost caught up here. Yep, just a few more to go. From Scoop, good stream. I'll light up a Camel Red and wait for BlizzCon to brighten up the week. That is right. If you're feeling depressed right now, chat, take solace in the fact that starting tomorrow, BlizzCon begins. And hopefully a bunch of Winnie the Poohs show up. God, that would be great. That would brighten the mood, wouldn't it? From Joseph Jimenez, there is no escape from this worst gangster police state. Using all of the deadly gangster Frankenstein controls, in 1965, CIA gangster police beat me bloody, dragged me in chains from Kennedy, New York airport. From Pro-Truth Anti-Media Archive, Jim, I wanted you to know I've uploaded my Caleb Kane Part 2 Halloween special on here because I knew you were looking forward to it a lot. Hope you enjoy. From Fasted State, time we started bombing intelligence agencies' buildings in Minecraft. Plantation Sensation, if you try to super chat a promotion for We Read the Documents, it tells you to edit it and try again. Really? From Lurik L., Sherlock Holmes director said the bad guy is Crowley. From Jessica Eustace, check out Operation Northwood. CIA were trying to commit terrorist attacks against America and blame Cuba to support the war. Can't trust those spooks. Well, it seems like after everything we've read today, you're probably right, we can't. And finally, from Mike Testa, happy Halloween spooky day, Jimbo. Fuck these monsters. Also, when are we getting some good games and not pseudo games that are like mini movies? I think those days are done. I don't know when we're getting good games again. Sadly, I don't know. I'm sorry. And from Cloud God DD, Jim, please stop smoking. I need you to live out Clown World until the end. Big love from Florida. Oh no, I've got to. Oh, it's too late for me, buddy. You don't come back from smoking as long as I have. I could be living healthy tomorrow and I'm a dead man. But you can keep me in your memories in your heart. Oh, that'll be good. Just keep them buried in there. Remember Jimbo. Oh, we've got one last one here. Mike Testa. Also, could you upload Photon Warrior rips, please? Well, I couldn't do that because that would be violating copyright, but maybe somebody will. Wink, wink. All right, chat. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this informative stream. We've covered the finders now in both parts. We've gone over the FBI report. We've talked to somebody who definitely had some insights into it, talked to some people involved in it, and has definitely researched more than I have on the subject of it. It's one hell of a spooky stream, a little depressing, but you've got BlizzCon to look forward to tomorrow, and who knows what the rest of the week will bring you. So, let's go out with something positive, Jesus. Was it, what is it, chat? MC Jarbo? Is that what I'm looking for? MC, we're going to leave this off with MC Jarbo, the hot hit from Jarbo the Hutt. I'll Be Honest, featuring, oh no, I'm sorry, My Girlfriend's Daughter. That's the one we're going to go. Fuck, what do I want? I'll Be Honest or My Girlfriend's Daughter? You know what, I'm going to go with I'll Be Honest, because I was liking that one.
Have something that'll really say.
All right, chat. This will be, the archive will be put up over on BitChute. Future videos over on BitChute. Any future streams, I'll always put up an announcement ahead of time. Have a good weekend, and I will see you all later.
Oh, Matt? Yeah. I have something that'll really save you a lot of time, and it'll fill you up, and it'll really help when raising your kids.
What is
My
it,
mac and cheese with hot dog bits, but make sure they're diced up and pan-fried, mix them together. Delicious, and it'll fill you up.
Fuck cheeseburgers and shit. KFC, nigger, please. Nothing beats macaroni and cheese, sliced hot dogs in a pan, sweet as can be. Man, I love all these autistic recipes. Turn these backwards, stupid motherfuckers in my Discord chat. But Matt, how are you gonna diss your friends like that? Are you really this dumb? Dumb enough to let them record my ass for like the last 6 months?
With hot dog bits.
You know what I really hate? My dick won't elevate, and I'm not even 38. My gut's in the way. Tired every day of hearing my girl fucking the entire NBA. Dude, what are you gonna do next? She's way past having unprotected sex. Guess I'll be bringing up somebody's rejected kids, cleaning up somebody's ejected jizz. Bunch of black guys standing outside. 91 African dongs in sight, and I'm hiding under the fucking bed, beating my bone from a safe space. I don't want to be meeting Tyrone face to face in case I get a punch to the head. Like when I said he should be paying at least some of the rent. Tyrone, are we good? Are we good? Oh god.
Shut your bitch ass! I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna lie,
I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna lie.
I'll be honest with you guys. I'll be honest with you guys.